Welcome back to the Game 7 podcast. It is Isaac Bugarin back with you guys again after a very, very long hiatus. Um, Gosh, it's so good to be back to talk about sports for once. You know, today we have a very interesting podcast today, and I'm sure you read the title by now, so you already know what it's about. Um, I am reacting to the night one of The Last Dance. The Last Dance, which is the ESPN document about basically the third championship of um, the third championship of the second three-peat that Michael Jordan and the Bulls had. And so, really, it's documenting everything with from absolutely unprecedented access that the team gave them, and interviews and quotes and just everything about it. I'm reacting to that today, and I'm going to start off by saying this was the best 2 hours of quarantine that I think I've had. 100%, like without a doubt. This was the best 2 hours that I think I've had. Before I get too much into it, this is the Game 7 podcast. I'm Isaac Bugarin. Will hasn't watched it yet, so that's why he's not on the podcast with me, is because he hasn't watched it yet. But I imagine eventually he'll get into it, and he'll be able to watch episode 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 next week, and we should be able to record a podcast about it then. But as of right now, it's just me talking about The Last Dance. You can follow us on Twitter at _ Game 7, Facebook Game 7 Show, YouTube Game 7 Show, all of our social media. If you don't like my takes, or if you don't like what it is that I'm saying, then I guess you could shoot us an email, game7show@gmail.com. I check that pretty regularly. So go ahead, shoot us an email whenever you feel like I made a bad take. If you think I suck at my job, then by all means, go ahead, let me know. But yeah, follow us at _ Game 7, Game 7 Show. Pretty much all of our social media handles. If you have my personal number, you can reach out to me that way too. But gosh, yeah, this is the best 2 hours of quarantine. Um, The Last Dance talks about Jerry Krause, Phil Jackson, Scottie Pippen, and of course Michael Jordan. That's pretty much what we've gotten into so far in these 2 episodes tonight. First, before I get in, I guess I'm going to tell you about what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about some of the quotes that I heard that I had to write down that I was like, interesting, and then a couple questions that I kind of had of myself, and I saw it on Twitter as I was scrolling through and watching. Just a couple talking points, to say the least. Number one is that I got my list here. I'm just gonna go right down the list, not in chronological order or anything. So if you haven't watched it yet, then I don't want to ruin it for you. But the first thing I wrote down was that Michael Jordan said that he earned his stripes in Game 3 at Milwaukee. I believe they were down like 9 points entering the fourth quarter or something, and it was just a Chicago Bulls team that just essentially just did not want to win. Like, they were afraid of winning. They didn't know how to win. And so Michael Jordan just comes back and says, here's my fourth quarter. I'm going to drop what he dropped. I don't even remember how many he dropped, but it was his third game in the league. And he says, that's when I earned my stripes. That is crazy to say. Is like, this kid's a rookie. He's 190 pounds dripping wet. And he says, you know what? I'm a rookie, but I earned my stripes in Game 3. Like, well, nobody else has the balls to say that, to say, I knew I earned my stripes in Game 3. That's like me saying, I earned my stripes on this podcast all the way back in month number 1. Like, that's when I knew this podcast was going to be great. That's the kind of confidence that Michael Jordan had. The second thing I wrote down was that Dean Smith, head coach at UNC, University of North Carolina, he tells Michael Jordan to go pro because it's the best thing for him. Dean Smith knew that without Michael Jordan, obviously his college program is not necessarily rebuilding, but you're losing the best player on the team. You're losing a one of the most noble players in university history at that time. You're losing him. And for the head coach to come to Michael Jordan and say, listen, I know that you don't know what you're about to tell the press if you're committing to another year at UNC or if you're committing to the draft. But what I want you to know is that I want you to go pro because it's the best thing for you. He knew. I think Dean Smith knew obviously that Michael Jordan and any college player for the matter of fact is just one injury away from potentially ruining everything that they have going for them. Like he's just one injury away. Um, and so for Dean Smith, and I think Michael Jordan realized it too, was that um, you have to go while you're young. You have to go while your stock is high. Otherwise, again, one injury is going to derail everything. It's going to take away pretty much everything that you you have done essentially, right? And so for Dean Smith to say that Michael Jordan, he puts Jordan's life, Jordan's livelihood, Jordan's family, um, everything about Jordan's career, he puts that ahead of the program. And I think that just speaks volumes to Dean Smith, um, head coach at UNC, because I think any player would want to play in that program now. Obviously now anybody wants to play there now, but then um, you have a head coach of a nationally awarded program that is telling players like, hey, listen, I'm gonna be okay. This program will be okay. We'll figure out a way to get by. But what I care about is you. I care about what you are doing with your future and you getting to the NBA. That is his goal, is to develop players, not necessarily just care about his program and his championships and his bonuses. You know. So that was another thing I wrote down was Dean Smith at UNC. Great, great, great quote. Great, great, great soundbite from there. Another one that I wrote down was Larry Bird, following the 1986 playoff performance of Michael Jordan. So if you remember, Michael Jordan absolutely goes off in Game 1 for 49 points, and absolutely goes off against the Celtics. I believe the Celtics team has 4 Hall of Famers on it, including Larry Bird, if I remember correctly. And then so he goes off. Michael Jordan goes off for 49 points in Game 1. Game 2, he comes around and drops 60 plus points. Unprecedented. Absolutely unprecedented. And it didn't matter who was guarding Michael Jordan. They said everybody tried to guard him. From Larry Bird to Bill Walton. You were getting everybody to guard this dude. And nobody could guard him. And I believe they said Bill Walton even fouled out pretty early on too. He had 4 fouls. And was it the second or third quarter? He had 4 fouls and was just getting stuck in trying to guard Michael Jordan. So eventually fouls out. And so after the game, or after the series, whatever, Larry Bird gives this great quote that says, basically that he didn't believe that was Michael Jordan. He said that was God disguised as Michael Jordan. And I to say that about a sophomore player coming off an injury, just insane. For him to say yeah, this dude averaged, or he just dropped 112 points on us in 2 games, and yeah, he's God. That wasn't Michael Jordan out there. That was God. Just absolutely insane. And that was Michael Jordan coming off an injury. Another injury that I wrote down was Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen had surgery before the season, or right when the season started. Somebody could correct me if I was wrong on that. If it's right before the season started or right at the end of summer, because this quote that he says, quote, excuse my language right here, I'm not gonna fuck my summer up, end quote. All right. That I thought that was really funny because Scottie Pippen, he just won 5 titles, right? Or he's coming off his 5th title, right? He's the most underpaid player in all of basketball. You guys saw exactly, or I assume you watch the show, and that's why you listen to this podcast. You guys saw the numbers. You guys saw. It said Scottie Pippen was 122nd in salary, even though he was probably the second best player in the NBA behind Michael Jordan at that time. All right. And it's all because he signed this contract years before that. He was going to play for 7 years and 18 million. 7 years and 18 million. To put that in perspective, Scottie Pippen was 122nd in the NBA in terms of salary. In today's NBA, 122nd person, or the 122nd person paid in the NBA is Andre Roberson, which is like Scottie Pippen and Andre Roberson. No offense to him, he's a great NBA player, but Scottie Pippen is 6-time champion. I mean, looking back, So for him, for Scottie to recognize that and say, you know what, I'm not even getting paid that much. Why am I going to play? Why can't I just have surgery at the beginning of the season? I'm going to enjoy my summer. I just won a 5th championship. You know, I'm not doing anything too bad, right? So I thought that was pretty interesting. Scottie Pippen, super underrated though, just really, really, really underrated. 20 points during this 6-year stretch of when he won championships. He put all those seasons together. He averages 20.7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block per game, all while getting paid what, just over $2 million a year. Again, put it in perspective. Andre Roberson. All right. Another thing I wrote down, another really interesting quote, was when Jerry Krause said, Jerry Krause says, organizations win championships, not players. And I 100% disagree. 100% disagree. The Chicago Bulls have not won a championship since. Since he said organizations win championships, not players, or since obviously the last three-peat. It's just, I don't believe, it's not that I don't believe that organizations don't win championships, because organizations do win championships, they do, but it's the players that win it. Like, duh, right? The players are the ones that are building this entire program up, and yeah, the coaching staff too. It's everybody. It's an entire organization, not just the GM or the director of basketball operations, not just the head coach. Because at the end of the day, it's the product on the field, it's the product on the court that has to succeed, right? You have to get a little lucky with health. You have to get a little lucky with the guys around you. You have to get a little lucky with your schedule. You have to get a little lucky with just everything. Being hot at the right team or at the right time, right? Because as any of us know, it's not always the best team that wins a championship. It's typically the hottest team that wins a championship, right? It is the hottest team. So just in general, I mean, Jerry Krause, I think this whole documentary is really painting Jerry Krause as just a totally bad dude. And obviously I don't know him on a personal level, so I can't really speak to that. But it just blows my mind. Like, just the things that came out of this dude's mouth just made absolutely zero sense. Absolutely zero sense. Another thing I wrote down, and I got a kick out of this, was, did you guys see Barack Obama and Bill Clinton? They had little interviews or little quotes, little cameo appearances in this documentary. Under Barack Obama's name, it was referred to as former Chicago resident, and under Bill Clinton, it was referred to as former Arkansas governor. I just thought it was super funny, because I mean, they're not wrong. Don't get me wrong. And then they're both, like, at the time, Obama was a Chicago resident, and at the time, Bill Clinton was the Arkansas governor. So they're fitting for the time period for when they were talking about. I mean, obviously they were talking about Michael Jordan and the Bulls' direct direct feel on the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. And obviously Bill Clinton was the Arkansas governor, where Scottie Pippen, or when Scottie Pippen was a player at Arkansas. Was it Central Arkansas, something like that, some small school, something like that. And what blew my mind about that, when they talked about Scottie Pippen, was that they said he was like, what, 6'1" when he started college, right? He was a 6'1" guard, and then after his freshman year of college, between freshman and sophomore year that summer, they said he grew like 5 inches. Absolutely insane. That's literally like me growing 6 inches this summer, 7 inches this summer in college. Like, no way I'd grow 6 or 7 inches in college, right? Like, don't they say dudes stop growing by the age of 18, something like that, right? We hit a huge growth spurt and then we just stop, or I don't know. I guess that's why I'm not in biology. why I study sports. I don't study the human body, but still, it blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. He enters college as a 6'1" freshman guard, leaves college as a 6'7" absolute beast of a forward. Right. Um, Question here: did Jerry Krause curse the Bulls franchise? I think he did. I'm not gonna lie. I think he did. It blows my mind as to why Krause and the Chicago Bulls front office wanted to rebuild. It absolutely blows my mind because they're in the middle. I mean, I guess hindsight, we look back at it. They are ending their second three-peat. Like they just won 5 championships in every year that Michael Jordan had been there in the last 5 years. It blows my mind. Like, you're gonna try to rebuild when you have the greatest player on the planet, the greatest player to ever play, alongside Scottie Pippen. You got Robin, Batman and Robin. Just pay them, right? Or pay Pippen, but you don't need to rebuild. It blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind. What like for Jerry Krause to say that organizations win championships, not players, and then to go rebuild and then to tell Phil Jackson that this is going to be your last season coaching. If Jerry Krause told Phil Jackson that he could go 82-0, win a championship, and he still would not be the coach the following season. And he said this all even though Michael Jordan had already come out and said that he didn't want to play for another coach. He said that if Phil Jackson's not there, neither is he. Rightfully so. You just won what would be 6 championships with the dude. I wouldn't want to play for any other coach if I just won 6 championships and I'm the best player on the planet. I feel like I kind of have that pool, right? As Michael Jordan should feel like he has that kind of pool. Phil Jackson dubbed the season "The Last Dance" when Jerry Krause had told him that he wasn't coming back. I think they had like a folder or something, and whatever meeting that Phil Jackson had called said that this was going to be the last dance, and so it meant a lot more to the organization, to Phil Jackson, to Michael Jordan, that they dubbed it as the last dance. Like it needed to be special. I mean, he was going for his 6th ring in 8 years, and you're going to tell the dude that if you go 82-0, you win a championship, you're not coming back. Just blows my mind. I don't get it. Don't get it one bit. Oh, and what about in '85, Jordan's rookie year? They talk about the Bulls traveling cocaine circus. I can only imagine every single player on that '85 Chicago Bulls team sitting in their living room with their families watching that clip where Michael Jordan says he was a rookie knocking on hotel doors, and he stumbles upon the one that he thinks that his teammates are in, and they say, "Shh, somebody's here." And then they hear say, "Hey, it's Mike," and they're like, "Oh, he's just a rookie. Let him in." He comes in, and there's like a majority of the team, which I assume has got to be at least 10, 11 dudes from the Chicago Bulls, that '84 team, right? A bunch of cocaine, a bunch of weed, a bunch of girls, women, just everything, right? I can only imagine that the players on that '85 team are sitting there telling their families, "No, that wasn't me. I wasn't a part of that. How awkward would that be?" Um, but then like the wherewithal for Michael Jordan to realize like, hey, I'm just a rookie, but I cannot get caught up in this. Like, one, if there was a raid, obviously we're all going down. He's just as guilty as everybody else, like he said. But for him to take a step back and say, you know what, like I cannot get caught up in this. He's built different, right? He was built different than all those other players, all those other rookies, everybody else in the league. He was just a absolute go getter. That kind of mentality, right? Gosh. And another thing I wrote down was that Michael Jordan, his sophomore season, coming off that injury, Michael Jordan and load management, which is a really interesting topic. I'd love to talk about this again in a future podcast about load management. But he absolutely did not want it. Did not want it. Front office basically tells the Chicago Bulls coaching staff that he's limited to one. He wasn't even going to play. Right? Didn't even want to play. They said it was a 90% chance to a 10% chance that he would stay safe to never being able to play basketball again. And Michael Jordan said what to the effect of, well, or they compared it to if you have a really bad headache and I give you a bottle with 10 pills, 9 of these are going to cure your headache, one of them is going to kill you. Michael Jordan says, well, how bad is the damn headache? Thought that was pretty funny. But still comes back and they put him on what, 14-minute restriction of playing time. Really, really interesting. 14 minutes, not a second over. So in that, I think it's that April 3rd game against the Indiana Pacers in Indiana, they were down 1 with 31 seconds left, and they just needed somebody to score. And then they pulled Michael Jordan out because he had already hit that 14-minute stretch and wouldn't even let him play another 14 seconds to try to go get that bucket. Which eventually James Paxson hits it anyways, and they end up going on to make the playoffs, playing the 86 playoffs, and that's when Jordan drops 112 points in 2 games over the Boston Celtics team with 4 Hall of Famers on it. But Michael Jordan didn't want load management at all. He thought he was fine. But I think that just speaks to the different kinds of players that they were all the way back in that time. They were just the players then were just tough. It was a gritty basketball game. It wasn't about how many jump shots they could take or anything like that. It was about literally their game was getting to the basket, getting layups, getting hard-earned buckets, right? Getting absolute hard-earned buckets. I saw a post earlier today that said it captured all the shots from Michael Jordan's season, right? At least his made baskets. Said he made 36 or 37 3-point shots in 1986, that entire season. He made 36 3-point shots in that the third championship of the second three-peat. He made 37 3-point shots. To put that in perspective, in today's NBA, Stephen Curry broke the record for 406 three-pointers made in a season. MJ made 37 and averaged like 35 points a game that entire season. He made 37 threes the entire season, averaged 36, 35 points a game. Stephen Curry made 400 and what? 6? More than that. He's 450 in a season. And he averaged 31, I think, off the top of my head. So kind of put it in perspective, like 2 totally different NBAs, 2 totally different eras, 2 totally different dynasties, 2 totally different styles of play. Gosh. I was really excited to watch episode 1 and 2 of The Last Dance. That was awesome. Obviously, episode 2 ends with Scottie Pippen demanding a trade, which we'll find out in the next episode that, well, we already know that it doesn't come to fruition. But I'm really anxious to know the details. Really anxious to know the details and exactly what Jerry Krause says or doesn't say to try to keep Scottie there. Or is it Michael Jordan that tells him? Or is it Rodman? Like, there's just so many different ways that you could articulate this conversation as to where does it go from here, you know? Oh, another quote that I was just thinking of, Phil Jackson, when Jerry Krause doesn't invite him to his wedding. He's like, if someone doesn't invite me to the wedding, I'll thank them. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. Overall, I mean, Jerry Krause is not getting he is painted as the villain in this dynasty, to say the least. He is painted as the absolute villain. Phil Jackson is painted as, at least so far, Phil Jackson is painted so far as this masterful head coach that is underpaid, also underappreciated. The Chicago Bulls don't really value him. They think it's all Jordan, and that basically Phil Jackson is just like you could replace Phil Jackson. That's what they said in the documentary. You could replace Phil Jackson, but you can't replace Jordan. Scottie Pippen is obviously portrayed as this massively underpaid player, second greatest player in the NBA at the moment, demanding a trade. But then Michael Jordan kind of paints Scottie Pippen as being selfish towards the end. It says that him demanding a trade is selfish. I mean, arguably so. It was December. The Bulls were out of the playoff race. And Scottie Pippen says, "Yeah, even when I'm healthy, I don't want to play here. I want out." So I guess it is kind of selfish, but at the end of the day, I mean, the dude, I can't necessarily call him selfish for getting paid $2.5 million a year when Michael Jordan's getting paid $33 million a year. The dude's Robin. It's Batman and Robin. You're paying him $35 million to the duo, and Michael Jordan's getting $35 million or $33 million of that. Huh. So it's really interesting as far as how they paint these players. Michael Jordan is just painted as an absolute beast, just a dude that just has absolute no regard for anything other than winning, other than basketball. Gosh, I'm so excited for next Sunday. I wish we could just simulate the time between now and next Sunday. Really excited to watch that. I am hoping Will can watch episode 1 and 2, and then again next week watch episode 2 or 3 and 4, and then we could kind of get into the series again. Night one of this series was great. Night 2 next week is going to be fantastic. I cannot wait. Again, I'll probably end up posting the podcast Monday morning, just like I did with this one. As always, you can follow us at _Game7 on Twitter, Game 7 Show on Facebook, Game 7 Show on YouTube. It's where we post the full-length video clips of this podcast. I made some takes today, talked about some Michael Jordan, talked about Scottie Pippen, Jerry Krause, Phil Jackson. If you don't like my takes, email me, game7show@gmail.com. Check it out. Also, if you're watching the video, you can kind of see I'm growing some facial hair. This is what we call the quarantine beard, right? Quarantine mustache too, a little bit, I guess. I don't really know what I'm doing. But I'm wearing a hat because my hair is getting so long, so I kind of need a haircut too. Not that you guys necessarily care about that, but got to get a haircut here pretty soon. And I'm going to end this podcast by saying, if you are looking for a dog, go to the shelter first. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys on the next podcast. Let's get after it this week. Make it a good week, right?